Good morning to you, Steve. Welcome to today's session. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Thanks, Blessing. Yeah, so I've been in the produced water industry for about 26 years now. I've been primarily looking at upstream and now recently in the last 5 years some midstream applications in the North American market, but always exclusively with produced water. My newest focus and passion is recycle and reuse, and there's a big push for that, especially in the water scarce areas in the US. But I first got my first exposure in the Middle East, in Oman, where there was a reedbed application and program going on where they were reusing recycled produced water, treated produced water. And it was very exciting to see the benefits of that. I think water in general is very important to our society, but there's a lot that our industry and oil and gas can do to make some small steps toward that, just as we do it individually in our own homes and lives. Water has been definitely a passion. I've been, working in Africa for a few years now, specifically with the E&P companies. But now, with the group of folks that we've engaged with the last 2 years in Africa, and visiting, Lagos for the first time, or actually second time, but first time for this purpose back in 2019. It was a great eye opener. There was a lot of again, interest and passion from others that have common interests like mine for water, in improving what we're doing with produced water in our industry, and then just sharing of information, but also friendship. There was a lot of great camaraderie that was shared, and new connections. So it was a great experience for me. I definitely felt that I got more out of it than I actually gave. So it always a good experience when you can do that.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. What would you say is the biggest change you've probably seen over the years in produced water?
I want to say that there's all these great innovations and progress. I think the biggest change has been the volume of information that we're exposed to, the data. Just like in our personal lives, again, we're inundated with a lot of information, and we have to quickly decide what we're going to do with it, if any. And I think how we communicate information, how we assimilate the information, and then what we do with it is very telling. I think the biggest challenges for the year ahead is, and the future is using that information in a positive way to make a difference, and then taking action on it and having some measurable, kind of initiatives that we can all kind of gauge our success on, and as well as, listening to each other, listening to the industry, listening to the market, listening to the earth. all the things that we need to do to be better at what we do is, the listening part of it is just as important as the outgoing communication.
Okay. What would you say the impact then is of climate change when it comes to producing?
Well, I mean, obviously we're all seeing that right now. I'm in California right now. We're surrounded by wildfires. We are in a continuous drought. We do have a fair amount of oil and gas production here, not as much as 10 years ago, because of mainly the shale play has kind of refocused the efforts of the heavy oil in California. But I do believe that everything that we do impacts, our environment. There's been a lot of talk about, produced water and oil and gas production, being, so devastating, but, pretty much any industry that we're working in, anytime we're changing, the landscape that we're living in, there's a downside to that, or a cost to pay. So I do think it's important to be, better stewards of the environment. There's many things that we can do. It's not always easy. It's not always the lowest cost. But in the long run, I do believe that if we do pay attention to the environment and work, within the constraints and try to do better, that we will actually succeed and do better.
Thanks for that. With all the move now towards gas, electricity, moving away from petroleum and stuff, what would that do to produce water as an industry or as a sector?
Well, the produced water volumes have been increasing year over year, mainly because there's more water produced with oil and gas as it comes up naturally, and the use and the reuse of water could have an impact there. I don't see, even if oil and gas greatly declines, I don't see the water necessarily declining. Even in down years, we've seen an uptick in the water volume. So I don't think in the short term, unless something drastic were to happen and we eliminate somehow oil and gas production, water will be a very important aspect of that always, and even more so in the future as we look to new innovative ways to recover oil and gas, from the ground. So I don't think it's going to go away. I think if anything, we need to study it more and apply best practices that we already know. I said I've been doing this for 26 years. There's been some inroads where we've made changes. We've taken advantage of technology, but we still have a long way to go. And I do think, just like with the cell phone, the mobile technology has changed and improved so greatly. We can use that as an example of how water could also, take and make some major changes and improvements for all of us.
Yeah, and that leads me nicely to the next question, really, which is, do you see a world where produced water becomes energy itself? Is that even possible to think about?
Well, definitely, we've looked at ways for zero liquid discharge and other, innovative ways to use and reuse water, and also the waste, solids that come up from underground can be reused. Whether it's something as simple as a road program to create roads, but there's brick making. I've seen various different things around the world that's very exciting. Things that we typically would think is a waste or to dispose of in a landfill can actually be reused and for building or infrastructure. So I do think there's a long way we can go still with how to really squeeze every last resource out of water and the byproducts that come up along with oil and gas production.
Okay. Now moving on to more current, shall I say, situations in the world with the whole COVID-19 lockdown, economic downturn. What impact has that had on produced water as it is now and the future of produced water?
Well, I think we've, again, just like we're doing today, maybe in the past we would have, been face to face. I think, using the tools that we have today to communicate and exchange information better will be imperative. I know, as we're switching platforms throughout the day through all of our different types of meetings, it's always a challenge to learn something new, but it's always, a chance to do more and to communicate and exchange ideas with others. So I do think there's an upside to that. And I attended a couple of events, since the COVID, situation happened in Q1 of this year. I met people in virtual events that I would have never met otherwise, mainly because, they may not have got approval to travel to certain locations or to an event. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to do more and to reach places that we couldn't normally in the past, or for a lot of us. So I think there's great opportunity there. I believe the health and safety aspects are, a little bit more first and foremost, mainly for the personal protection, but also just how we interact with people, in the field or at a man camp or, just in our daily lives, and daily lives in the field and office. There's a lot of, positive things that we can do to make changes, to learn and to grow. From an economic standpoint, I believe, this has really, squeezed us to figure out ways to be, better with not only our bottom line, but our decision making, prioritizing and picking and choosing which things are most important. Um, Again, not only to the bottom line, but also for the environment. So there are a lot of positive that's come out of this. The biggest challenges obviously are you know mindset. People have a hard time changing. People have a hard time you know not shaking a hand or going wanting to to go in front of somebody and see them face to face. There's a lot of resistance right now to this sort of communication virtually. But I do think it is mainly, that mind set that we're kind of sometimes stuck in. Fear of change, and then obviously a lot of people have been affected this directly with this, either their own illness or family members or coworkers. So I think there's a realization that there's a lot of aspects that have to be taken more seriously, and health is very important. Not only health of your person, but your community and also your company. So I think there's a lot of things that we could do, um, as we learn and grow and create new norms for us to be a little bit better. It just like anything, change is difficult and it's not always comfortable. So it will progress. I've seen some positive changes. Along with the struggles. So I'm optimistic for the future, despite the this global pandemic.
Okay, that's good to know. Steve, what's your personal take on the future of produced water? Where are we going? What needs to be done, and who needs to do it?
Well, I think definitely having a multi-pronged approach with the operators, the oil field service folks, the technology people, the academics, and I also think the students that are learning and growing and forming the future are very key to this. During our November event in Lagos, I was really fortunate to have exposure to many different types of people coming from different experiences within the oil and gas industry. From a student to to the ministry, to all the operators that got involved at various different levels, whether it be at from a field level, an engineering level, a leadership, an ESG type of coming from that angle. I think all those different types of folks getting together in one location, and maybe in the future that one location if it's possible, and or virtually. I think the virtual aspect is very useful. I think, like I mentioned, we can connect various different peoples together that normally would not be connected. So I think everybody has to do their part. I think also the sharing of the information. Many times, you hear a technology or an oil field service provider, complain about an operator that, oh, they don't give us the information, or an operator saying, oh, they promised this and they didn't deliver. Well, yes, those may all be very true on a case by case basis, but I do think overall people that are working together will find a way to share the information, so there aren't those shortcomings. But you can't do it in your own your own silo. You have to share with others, and I think that cross pollination, in academics, having those folks come in and share a different viewpoint is very helpful. It's always good to be questioned, because many times, I've even been asked to explain something, and I explained it, the way that I normally would, and then they asked, some very simple, straightforward questions, and I realized how sometimes we get stuck or in a rut and just answering, questions, and don't really think about overall how everything fits together and a different viewpoint. So I do think the different prongs of this community is what is required to make the changes. And again, going back to my comment about mindset, coming into it with an open mind and figuring out ways that we can do things, as opposed to just the reasons why we shouldn't or can't do them. Or, sometimes they're made up. Many times I've heard, this is the way that we've always done it. Well, that's a very bad reason for, only for doing it. Anytime you hear that, you should stop and think, okay, is that truly the best? Should I take another viewpoint? Should I get another opinion? So those are the things that I think we can work on and improve upon as we're, growing during this difficult time, not only with, the COVID-19 situation, but also, the oil prices, commodity prices, where they're at right now. We need to figure out ways to be more innovative.
So in essence, what you're saying is we should be open-minded, we should be open to change, and be ready to move forward, really, and share information. As much as share, we must also be prepared to hear, to listen,
Yes.
and to adapt.
Yeah, it works both ways. You have to be prepared to hear and absorb that information, and then also share the information. You can't come to a meeting or to an event or have pick up the phone and not be willing to give information. If you're only looking to get information, it's not going to work. And I've seen that before where, I've heard people come to an event and say, well, I'm just here to listen. Well, that's fine, but it's also really good to speak and to share and ask questions, give experiences. Here's what our situation has been. Those are the most, even if it's not a positive experience, here's a failure we had. Those are invaluable experiences to share with others.
So essentially, for the upcoming conference that we've got planned, you're saying you want people to come not just to hear and to take information, but to also give and to share information. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think what we need to do and what we're planning to do is invite more people, that wide range, that wide spectrum of different paths that are coming back from from students to academics to operators. Trying to get everybody together to share. We were quite innovative last event, looking at a young professionals event, and I think the next event will expand upon that, maybe doing some posters and various different new ways of sharing, even if it's virtual. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that can be done in person just as well as can be done virtually, and vice versa.
Okay, that's good. I suppose one more thing I need to ask is, who is produced water for? So someone who's watching this or listening to this interview now and has never heard of produced water, or maybe they have and they're quite keen, what's their roots in?
Right. So, produced water is going to happen anytime that you're going to have this to think about and as a resource to use anytime you're producing oil and gas. So the fact that it needs to be not seen as a issue or a problem, but as a resource, I think those are the things, if we can get that mindset changed as well. So anybody that's interested in, or maybe has experience in water in general, and they maybe have an interest in produced water specifically from the oil field, I think those are the sort of things where it'd be great to have some new people and new companies to experience and share their information. Because not only can we learn from each other, we can learn from other industries. What is done in mining or in iron and steel. Some of those lessons learned and practices can be applied to our oil and gas industry, specifically with produced water. Water is used in many different industries, and whether it's a byproduct or used as to produce the product itself, or a combination thereof, those are all opportunities for us to learn for water treatment, water handling, water management in general, and then again how to better recycle and reuse water.
You mentioned quite a fair bit about students and academics. What would a young individual go into university to study in order to become a professional in this sector?
Yeah, we had a great group of young professionals in Lagos last November, and I think they had a wide range of backgrounds. Obviously the most obvious would be a engineering background. Whether that's mechanical or chemical or petroleum or civil, a wide range actually. That's the obvious, but there is a great opportunity for, let's say, the business folks that are having a business degree. There is an opportunity for them in this conference and event, but also in the industry as a whole. There's a way to all of this is based on commerce. Whether the supply and demand of what we're talking about here, is oil and gas, but all the things that fit and are used in conjunction with it, like produced water, those are great opportunities for people that are maybe more entrepreneurial or maybe looking at big business. But so the business end of it, I would definitely encourage more and more of that community to come in. So we could maybe have a challenge where we have the business team against the engineering team and come up with different challenges. It could be really exciting and a good way to share and grow personally and professionally.
Okay, good. I've got to throw this in. Is this a man's world, do you think? Is there a place for female engineers or female students to
Absolutely.
come into? Or okay.
Absolutely. And I would say in the last 26 years, in the probably last 10 to 15 years, there's been a big increase in certain geographical regions in the world. Specifically looking at certain places in North America, we've seen more and more. It's exciting to see. And then a lot of expats that are in various different places throughout the world. Shell and Chevron, BP. There's a handful of IOCs that do a good job of promoting, women in the field, as well as some major NOCs and smaller, independents that do a really good job of this. I think it's anytime you can diversify the workforce, we all will get better. So the fact that we're seeing more women in the field is only going to help the industry, and it's exciting to see that progression during the last decade.
Okay. Is produced water a more field-based sector, or are there any opportunities at all within the sector that are not on the field?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We joke sometimes if we're in various different, one day we'll be in a nice button down or a suit if we're making a presentation in a boardroom or in a classroom or in front of a group of engineers that are office based or headquarter based, and then the next day we may be making that similar sort of presentation to people out in the field, in coveralls. So there's a wide range, whether you're in the field, with tools in your hand, or maybe in the field in a lab, or in a research type of environment in a lab. There's a corporate, engineering type of management type of role you could play. So there's many different, avenues that people are already in, and areas to grow. I think as we're growing and developing and changing, all these different fields. It's not just out out in the field, close to where the production is. There's so many more jobs and opportunities and careers that are available to people.
Thanks for that, Steve. I think that's really all I've got, but I've got one final question. Why should I attend the conference?
Well, I will have to say for myself, as I mentioned before, I got more out of it than I felt that I even gave. And I was a technical committee chair. I was a speaker. I was an organizer of different work groups, and I felt I was departing a lot of information, technical and shared lessons. But with everything that I gave, I still felt that I got more. I received more than I actually gave. So for me, I think anybody that comes into this will come away with more than they expected, and even if you're a speaker and a technical committee member, I think if you're open to it and looking for the information and the connections, you will get more than you expected, and then you actually give. So what a great way to learn and share information and get contacts in a very, very short amount of time. It's a very specific group of people with an interest in produced water. It's a great community. It's great to be a part of of that community and learn from it. So I definitely think if you're even the least bit interested in this topic and in field, you will get more than you expect by attending, again, in person, virtually, or a combination of. I think you're going to get a lot out of it.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming online to have this conversation with me today. Thank you so much for answering all my questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Blessing.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, Blessing. Take care of yourself.
All right. Okay, you have a good day. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk again soon.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.